Hi, my name is Andrea Gonza, and this is my inquiry theory to practice, bilingualism, and language development. So, first, my research context. I worked for the Madera County Superintendent of Schools at the Early Education Center, where there are preschool classrooms in which all are income based. The demographics in the classroom that I worked for were 20 students who range from 4 to 5 years old, and all are Hispanic who come from bilingual families. And this is a picture of the classroom. As for the inquiry focus and rationale, my focus was how to implement bilingual instruction into the classroom, which helps support the language development of students. Being bilingual refers to a person that is capable of speaking two languages fluently. More often than not, the first language is the primary language of the individual's home country, followed by their native language of their family origin. As for the rationale, introducing a second language to children can only bring forth beneficial aspects. This is why I chose to do this. Um, According to Genesee, Crago, and Paradis, bilingual children's early vocabularies tend to be bigger than the vocabulary of monolinguals. According to Golash, Boza, analysis have shown that bilingualism promotes academic achievement and leads to higher academic expectations. As for the key findings and the findings from the literature, according to a study, three standardized assessments were performed to measure productive language, receptive language, and language complexity in children who attended bilingual preschool. Results showed that there were no academic loss when attending. When referring to Skinner's language acquisition theory, the development of children's vocabulary acquisition depends on the input it receives. It had been argued that bilingual children have much more cognitive flexibility than monolingual children. Many believe that learning two languages concurrently can confuse children, but that is false, according to Winsler. For the data collection and analysis, I first did parent surveys. So surveys were administered through Google. That consisted of questions regarding families' feelings towards their bilingual education. 20 families received a survey with 10 questions. I received about 11 responses. I chose to create surveys to involve parents, as they too are a key factor in their children's language development. After data was collected, I noticed a change in parent involvement and volunteering. There was an increase in both. So, two of the questions I chose to put here are: do you agree that there are more opportunities for children who are bilingual rather than monolingual? 72.7% strongly agreed, while 27.3% just agreed. The next one was: do you think it is possible to learn two languages at the same time? 72.7% said yes, while 27.3% said no. According to Windsor's article, he addressed how early development for DLLs for both language depends on the quantity and quality of the language input they receive from parents at home. The next data collection was reading. So a small group of children were selected to read with me. We read Rubia y los Tres Osos. Together we had an open discussion about words they did not recognize. We created a visual board with these words. I had observed the classroom library and noticed there wasn't many bilingual texts, therefore I wanted to bring in more. So by creating this visual board, students were able to find context clues throughout the room for guidance. And going back to the class weeks later, I saw a change in the library and noticed there were books that were bilingual. So as a part of the data analysis, I did go back into the classroom and noticed the change in the library. There were more bilingual texts and inclusive ones as well. Throughout the class, in each area, there were labels in English and Spanish distinguishing each object. So when speaking to the same group of students I worked with, they were eager to tell me they did talk to their parents in Spanish and they described conversations they did have. So I completed a running record on students who participated in the reading group. Each record was evaluated by the errors, self-correction, substitution, meaning, and visual. The accuracy rate was about 50%. Using this assessment tool helped to see the progress in students' reading of another language other than their native one. I was able to evaluate their oral reading skills and identify any error patterns. Most of the students made their mistakes on the pronunciation while substituting their own words as well when they didn't recognize one. So the next one was creating our own text. Students used a visual board to create their own books. While reading the words, they used their own methods of how to read and write, using context clues, sounding out, and rereading the words. Seeing the eagerness to know more about Spanish, I decided I wanted the students to make their own Spanish book where they could write the words they hadn't known. This way, they could refer back to their text when needed. I used this method to see how students would use their new information by using their class methods for reading and writing. As for the writing assessment, I used a checklist that consisted of sentence completion, capitalization, recognizing letters, and identification of letter sounds, and if there was any identification of rhyming words. About half of the students were able to score high on the checklist, meaning they were able to do all correctly. Others struggled with the identification of letter sounds and actually recognizing each letter. As for the findings, after gathering responses from the surveys, I noticed there were some similarities. More families wanted more bilingual approaches. Some feared their child would lose one language, and others thought the classroom didn't represent who they were. So, as you can see here on the side, I have 3 questions that were a part of the survey. As for the reading, I found that students were more willing to learn when they had some type of connection and recognition with the words, so sharing their home experiences and having personal experiences with the text. In our writing area, I found that students gained significant tools and methods to help them, using their fingers to read, then would write the word, having discussions with their peers on what they wrote, and lastly, using context clues. As for my reflection and next steps, through my findings, I was able to learn new information I didn't realize how much students need to have another language introduced in their curriculum. I was surprised to see how many families wanted more of the approach, but also how many thought, like many, that they would lose their native language. But Winsler's article, we learned that that was false. Instead, students gained more academically when learning 2 languages concurrently. I would like to continue my research on bilingualism and the effects it has on students. I would like to promote and support the idea for implementing bilingual experiences for all ages, not just for the younger students. And lastly, I would like to advocate for those parents who do have language barriers and wish to learn a second language as well. I noticed that parents were eager to know more about what we were doing in the class when we did these bilingual activities. And this is just a little quote I wanted to put in. So 60 million Americans right now are bilingual, and that is according to the most recent census data. And I would just like this number to keep growing. So if we could focus more bilingual opportunities for students in the classroom. And that was it. If you guys have any questions, my email is listed below. Thank you.